This episode of Navel Gazing is sponsored by valleygivesback.org. Adding a Valley charity to your estate plan creates a lasting legacy that tells future generations what causes matter to you. Your action will inspire others to follow your lead and make a difference. With a planned gift, you have the power to impact the Valley community forever without affecting your current lifestyle. Learn more at valleygivesback.org, an initiative of the Valley Community Foundation. Plan now, give later, and impact tomorrow at valleygivesback.org.
For hundreds of years we brought you the news. Printed the info, we gave you the clues. Owners' profits were always sky high. Changing market now threatens our lives. Post-literation, critical reading, dumbed down nation, signs of inbreeding. TV sucking ideas from our head. Public discourse just about dead. We'll ride the dinosaur. Yeah, ride the dinosaur.
Hey everybody, welcome to Navel Gazing, the Valley Indy Podcast. My name is Eugene Driscoll, and my guest today is Aimee Misset, the new principal at the Irving School in Derby. And if I was any kind of professional, I would have asked you, how do you pronounce your last name, and did I just butcher it?
It's Misset. I tell the kids, if I throw something at you, don't miss it.
All right, that's easy.
Okay, so that'll help them remember.
Miss it. I apologize.
No problem.
Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
And I guess more importantly, welcome to Derby, and congratulations on your job as the new principal at the Irving School.
Thank you.
So I thought, we were talking for a second before we went on, I envisioned this as sort of just a get-to-know-you podcast. You know, we're two reporters at a nonprofit news site, and we don't get into the schools as much as we like to. We try to publish every press release that the schools send, but I thought this would be a little more, since you're brand new. Parents can listen and get to know you a little bit. So,
Perfect.
So where'd you grow up? Where are you from?
New Milford.
Oh, okay.
So not in this area. I currently live in Waterbury. I've been there for about 15 years. That's where my husband grew up, and that's where we ended up staying and raising our kids.
So switching back to New Milford for a bit, I started when I came to Connecticut after working at a weekly. I worked at the News Times of Danbury, which was the paper of Greater Danbury. Mm-hmm. So I'm somewhat familiar with New Milford. What was it like growing up there? It's rural, or I guess it's changed now.
It's changed a lot.
What was it like growing up there?
It was. I used to live near the downtown green, near Canterbury School. We walked everywhere. You didn't have all those wonderful stores on Route 7, but you also didn't have all the traffic. So I guess it's a lot different from now, but it was a nice town to grow up in.
And then what type of work would your mom or dad do for a living, and brothers and sisters and stuff like that?
I have one brother. He works for the state now, for DSS. My father, longtime high school English teacher in Brookfield, since retired. And my mother was a social worker in Danbury.
Oh, okay, so we got to ask Ethan over there, who's off mic and nobody can see him because this is a podcast. But he grew up in Brookfield and went to Brookfield High School.
Uh-oh.
So when did your dad retire? Like, when was he?
About 4 years ago.
Oh, so we got to ask. He probably, yeah.
I'm sure he knows him. My father was in Brookfield for over 30 years.
Wow, okay.
Yeah.
I need some blackmail stuff on Ethan. So, we had the new principal of the middle school in here a few weeks ago, and her parents, one of them was a teacher as well. So it's funny how this is passed on from generation to generation. Did you always know you wanted to be a teacher growing up because of your dad?
Yes and no. I started off playing school and wanting to be a teacher. And then in high school, I took a psychology course and absolutely loved it and thought that that's what I wanted to study and go into some kind of counseling role. But then after high school, I was working as a nanny. I was working in daycare centers, wanting to be around kids. And I decided to switch my major and go back to elementary education because I realized that I could kind of combine both of the things I loved. So I could teach. That would also give me an opportunity to, help kids grow as a whole child. The social emotional side of it too, which I still carry with me, into my work every day.
Where'd you go to college?
WestCon.
Oh, sure. All right. So, hey, I know all those places. Brookfield, New Milford, WestCon.
Went to Western.
When did you graduate?
Oh, God. 2003, 2004.
Okay.
I did my master's at Post University, and then I did my certificate in administration at Sacred Heart.
And then what was your first job in the education field?
So I, previous to coming here, have always worked in Waterbury. I started as a classroom teacher.
What grade? Like, what did you teach?
I was... being the new person, sometimes you get bumped around a lot. So my first years of teaching, I went kindergarten, fourth grade, back to kindergarten, back to fourth grade.
Wow.
So that was an experience in change, adjusting to change.
Well, and one thing I've read, because I have no background in teaching or education, and like, you know, my family are all like cops and criminals. The first year teaching is incredibly stressful. And it's like a lot of people don't make it through after that first year. You'll see people drop out. So what are your most vivid memories from that first year as a teacher?
It's one of them's kind of embarrassing, but I'll share it because I think it's probably true of most new teachers. I was setting up my classroom the week before school started, and the secretary brought in a mother with a new kindergartner who wanted to see the room. You know, her little daughter was nervous about starting, and so I was trying to make her excited about starting kindergarten, and I'm showing her different things around the room, and I said, oh, and these are these big bricks over here. I don't know what we're going to do with them yet, but we'll figure out something. And I thought about it afterwards, and I was like, I sound like I have no idea what I'm doing. That mother must be like, there's no way I'm bringing my daughter back here.
The bricks are just a cinder block wall you're going to
No, they were like play bricks. Like big,
okay.
like cardboard play bricks that were left in the classroom from a previous teacher. But that's how I felt. And then I went home so embarrassed that like I let a parent know that I didn't know what I was doing yet. And I'll never forget that. I think that all new teachers should have that go-to person in the building, because you need, other than your principal, you need a colleague you can go to and say, I feel like an idiot right now. What am I doing? Because it is difficult. No matter how much schooling you have, nothing prepares you for that first day with all those faces looking at you. It's a tough job.
And then at what point did you feel comfortable saying like, okay, this is my career. I now have a little bit of a handle at least, or a complete handle on what I'm doing. How many years does it take to get comfortable?
I mean, I can only speak for myself. I would say after the first maybe 2 years, especially having jumped from grade to grade, I realized that, okay, I can do this. And I actually didn't stay in the classroom too many years. My passion is literacy. So I became a Title I reading teacher and saw small groups of students that needed reading intervention.
Yeah, explain to me like what a Title I, that's a grant funded position for kids who need to be brought
in
up.
Waterbury, we're a Title I district. And so there was, funding we just called them Title I reading teachers. Basically, it was a reading teacher. And then from there, I became a literacy facilitator, which was more of a coaching position. So we wrote curriculum, but a lot of our time was spent mentoring new teachers, receiving training in literacy practices, best practices, and then modeling them in the classroom for teachers. So that was a nice kind of step for me between teaching and going into administration, because I had a lot of practice building relationships with teachers, coaching teachers. So that was my next step.
And you had said, I don't mean to interrupt.
No, that's okay.
What the heck?
We're just chatting.
Yeah. You had said literacy is your passion. Like, what is that? Why literacy? Like, what is it? It's like teaching kids how to read, essentially, is your...
Yes, and reading in general. I'm a big reader myself. I read a book for pleasure, probably one book a week I go through. That's my downtime. When everything's done, I get into bed and I read until I can't keep my eyes open anymore. And there's so much, I guess for me, and I'm going to sound corny for a minute, there's so much power in reading, because you can teach yourself just about anything. You can escape if you just want to read for pleasure. There's so much power to becoming a skilled reader. So I guess it's my own love of reading, and also, my love of teaching. I feel like the biggest thing I can give to kids is that power to be able to learn or explore on their own through reading.
Okay, and then before I'd interrupted you, you were going through your career at Waterbury. How many years did you work totally in Waterbury? Total in Waterbury?
Total in Waterbury, I was there 13 years. So 10 as a teacher or a coach. And then my last 3 years, I was assistant principal at Driggs School. It's a pre-K to 5 school in downtown Waterbury.
And then what made you make the jump from teaching? I mean, you've sort of talked about it already, but why go into the administrative side of things?
When I started teaching, I was one of those teachers that said, I'm never leaving the classroom. I think a lot of teachers are like that. My father, being a longtime teacher, used to come home and complain about his administrators all the time. So,
which is probably any job, right?
Yeah.
Like
Absolutely.
Ethan complains about me, I'm sure. The minute I walk out the room.
It's just part of working. But he would always say, once they leave the classroom, they forget what it's like. And I think that's a common sentiment. I think I even heard Rachel Caggiano say that when she was with you 2 weeks ago. And so I decided that after doing the coaching job, I felt like I could have more impact if I was working at a higher level and I could work with training teachers. I could help make decisions about practices in the school. I just felt like I would have more of an effect if I could take what I'd learned over the years and now bring it to the next level. But I do, in the back of my head, always hear my father saying, don't turn into one of those administrators. Don't turn into one of those that forgets what it's like. So I always have his voice in the back of my head reminding me of that.
Hi, this is Eugene Driscoll, most likely interrupting myself to bring you a message from our sponsor, valleygivesback.org. Adding a Valley charity to your estate plan creates a lasting legacy that tells future generations what causes mattered to you. Your action will inspire others to follow your lead and make a difference. With a planned gift, you have the power to impact the Valley community forever without affecting your current lifestyle. Learn more at valleygivesback.org, an initiative of the Valley Community Foundation. Plan now, give later, impact tomorrow at valleygivesback.org. Just telling you, don't. Yeah. And then when you look back at so how many years were you the assistant principal?
3 years.
3 years. What did you accomplish during that time? And I guess my other question: what does an assistant principal do? Because when I went to school, it was a smaller school. We just had to. Yeah. I guess there was an assistant principal. You'd get in trouble, you got sent to the assistant principal.
So discipline is definitely a part of it. I think it's different in every town or city, and it even differs by school. I was very lucky to work for a principal who was not just looking for somebody to do lunch duty and hall duty and discipline. He really wanted a partner, an instructional leader partner. So he let me take on a lot of projects that I wanted to do on my own. And really included me in decision making. So
what was the principal's name, or what is it?
His name is Mike Therial. He's still there.
Gotcha.
So I feel lucky that I was able to work with him, because instead of just learning the discipline management side of things, I feel like I really got a taste of what it's like to be that instructional leader and make decisions for the students and what's best for the building. One example was I mentioned before, like my passion for psychology and that whole social emotional piece too. I do think it's our job to teach the whole child. A lot of kids don't come in with the same social skills or coping strategies that we'd like to think that we had as kids. I'm not sure if we did or not, but just like not knowing how to read, if you don't know how to get along with people, it's a skills gap. So our job as educators is to figure out what those gaps are and help kids fix them so that they can be successful and happy.
That's an interesting point, because we talk to people all the time. Like there's another podcast we do here. It's with sports guys. A lot of old-time Valley sports guys, and they every once in a while, all these helicopter parents. And now in my day, we just slapped the kid on the back of the head and sent them on his way. And now I have a 5-year-old and a 7-year-old, because I was always like, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, these kids they're all wimps today. But then you're encouraged now at school to be a part of your kid's life. The schools are so much more inclusive. I mean, Irving schools specifically,
very
where they have community rallies where it's all about getting the community involved. So has that been a change? That's teaching to the whole child, which maybe wasn't done, at least when I went to high school.
I think that it comes down to looking at kids as individuals too. So part of the problem is that schools are expected to do so much these days. There's so much to teach. It's hard to keep up with curriculum. So I think what happened over the years is, you hear people say, well, kids don't get to play in kindergarten anymore. And that's not true. They do. But we try and make it more academic based because we need them learning those academic skills also. I just lost my train of thought.
Well, I had interrupted you anyway. You had talked about the whole school, and I went on my helicopter parents are certainly okay to a certain point. That was my point.
Yeah, so I do think it comes down to the individual child. Some kids are very independent. They're very outgoing to begin with, and some aren't. So sometimes I think what happens in school is because you have 20 kids sitting in front of you, you tend to treat them all one way. At least that was kind of my experience going to school growing up. So one of the things that I really encouraged my teachers in the past to do at Driggs, and this is kind of where I was going with him letting me take on some real leadership roles, is I started doing a series of workshops with them on developing relationships, how to teach social skills. And there was some pushback at first because they want their focus to be teaching academics. But if a child isn't coming into school in a place where they're ready to learn because they're too nervous or they're too worried about fighting with this friend, or
they're crying every day.
Yeah, or whatever else may have happened at home, then they're not in a place where they can take in that academic information either. So we have to figure out a way to balance that. We can't not do our academic piece, but we have to make sure that we build those relationships. And that sense of community, I think, is so important because you want students coming to school feeling like they belong, like they're part of something. Because then even if they are nervous or having problems, school's a safe place.
So now you're making this transition to the Irving School in Derby. We're in Ansonia. I almost said here in Derby, but it's right up the road. So I assume when you interviewed for the job, whoever interviewed you, however that works, had their ideas of what they needed for a good fit for the school. But at the same time, I'm sure you were probably interviewing them as well to make sure you're going to land in a place where you'll be supported and be able to flourish and all that. So what was it about the Irving School specifically that attracted you to it? What are its strengths?
Well, when I started looking for principal jobs, I wasn't incredibly serious about it to begin with. I knew that I was ready to take that next step. I wanted to take on a principal role, but it didn't necessarily have to happen right away. I was happy at Driggs, and I'd built great relationships there. But I stumbled upon the Irving listing, and I looked them up on the website, and I read about their core values, including Derby's core values, but then the individual school as well. And so much of it mirrored what I truly value as well. So, for example, they respect ourselves, respect others, respect our school. And that's been the Irving, motto for years now. And my motto that I had brought with me to Driggs was very similar. But instead of using the word respect, we used the word take care. So I talk to kids about we take care of ourselves, we take care of others, and we take care of our school. So right away, looking at the website, it was like, ding, 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 this fits right into, what I really value and love. Along with, they try to promote a love of literacy, so another, passion of mine. And it felt like the right fit. And then I was invited to visit Irving School after I interviewed, and I literally drove away with the biggest smile on my face. Everybody was so welcoming and warm. The school, had these beautiful murals painted over the walls. It just felt so good to be there, and I wanted to be a part of that. And luckily, they wanted me to be a part of it too, so here I am.
And Irving is a high needs school.
Yes.
There's a large portion of the students there come from working class families that are near the poverty line,
yes.
Or at least, poverty line, I don't even know what that means anymore. It's like everyone's struggling and working for a living. I'm sure.
Absolutely.
Two parent households that are both working. What are the challenges? Because a lot of times, we write a story, and especially, we write in general about a school, and the reporter just writes, it's economically distressed community, and you sort of dehumanize the whole, the students that are there.
I think
so. I'm trying to gently ask, like, what are the challenges to teach kids where they're coming from families that are struggling financially?
Right. And I think you kind of hit the nail on the head when you said sometimes it's easy to dehumanize that. Because at the end of the day, you really don't know. It's easy to judge as well. When you see kids come into school and sometimes they look tired or they didn't eat or, their clothes might be dirty. It's easy to judge, but you can't because you don't know the circumstances that they're coming from. And as you said, a lot of these are families that are working very hard. They're doing the best they can do, and they're great parents. They just, as you said, are struggling right now. So one of the challenges is making sure that we are supporting the families as much as possible. We have the walking school bus. I don't know if you've heard about that. That started before me. I can't take credit for that.
And that's where a group of educators from the Irving School go around and collect kids for school.
Basically, they go on a walking tour every morning, and kids know that they're going to stop at certain corners. They come out, and everybody walks back to school together. So,
and the motivation behind that, correct me if I'm wrong, because there's been some stories on it where it's and the reporter they do it from like a happy joy, which is great. It's a great, wonderful program, but also it's designed to get kids to school who might otherwise miss the bus, not show up for school.
Absolutely,
and that was a major thing going on at Irving. That
Absolutely, and as a parent, I'm working too. My husband works as well. I have two of my own children, and there are mornings it's hard for me to get them to school.
Yeah.
And I'm not necessarily struggling in the same way some of our families are. And that's what I mean by you have to get rid of the judgment. Some of these are younger kids who parents don't feel safe having them walk to school by themselves, but may not be able to walk them because they have a sick child at home. So we're trying to provide ways to help these families because at the end of the day, they want what's best for their children.
And how did you find out about the walking school bus? Was it just one of those things that you heard about? And
It was on the website, and I was excited about it because I'd heard about it before and thought it would be great in Waterbury, but we were never kind of able to pull it together. I went on the walking school bus when I visited. And so I actually got to experience it the first day that I came down here before I was appointed. And it was great. The kids love it. I think they feel special. It's kind of a cool thing to be part of that walking school bus in the morning. But that's just, one example. There's lots of community resources out there, and we want to make it as easy as possible to connect parents with them.
And in terms of, I know there's been a ton of stuff. You're replacing Jennifer Olson, who has been promoted. She's the curriculum director, CIA. Yeah, I can't remember the whole thing. I wrote it down, but and I know she aided with a lot of grant money. Was really concentrated on school climate and improving all the things we're talking about in terms of the community, which had been an issue in 2006, 2007, 2008, including safety, that kids felt safe in school and were free from bullying and all that. So I know that's all on the rise. And then the other side is these test scores. And before we went on mic, I was admitting that I'm a moron. There's nothing as difficult than trying to make sense of test scores in Connecticut. And I'm not an education reporter, but how is that going? Because what happens, and I'm sure a lot of parents have trouble too. Because I'm a parent, and then you end up putting like Irving School, and then you get like greatschools.org, whatever that is, and it just has like one sentence or one word summary of Irving School. It's just like no good. So how are the test scores going? What are the challenges in that regard?
They are going up. So, we're seeing positive trends in both reading and math. But there's a lot of room for growth. And there's a lot of room for growth at Irving, but there's a lot of room for growth across Connecticut. With the switch to smarter balance testing, it looked like a lot of districts, all of a sudden their test scores dropped. but, it's a completely different assessment. And so now we finally have a few years under our belt and we can start to see the trends, and they are going up. And kind of like I said with the child, if they're not coming into school in a place where they're ready to learn, they're not going to take in that academic information. So all this work that Jen Olson did to build that great community at the school and that safe, positive climate for the kids is putting them in a place now where we can really start to focus in on the academics. Not that they weren't before, but you have to have that safe climate in place so kids are coming to school ready to learn. And
it's like a foundation almost, like a foundation
absolutely.
of a house.
I mean, think about it. If you go somewhere to learn something new and you're sitting there and you're nervous, you don't feel good, you didn't eat breakfast that morning, you're tired, you're worried about the guy next to you because he keeps, looking at you funny, versus going to a workshop and, people are chatting with you. You have a full stomach. You had a good night's sleep. Everybody's saying hello and smiling. Which one are you going to retain more from? Which one are you going to go home and be like, oh, I learned this today. It's the same for children.
And that's caring for the whole child, teaching the whole child that you had mentioned.
From what I can see, walking into Irving, that climate's there. The community is there. That sense of safety and relationships is there. It feels like a family. I actually surveyed the teachers when I first got there, because it's hard starting in the summer because, you're trying to plan, but there's so much unknown. You're kind of
there alone to a certain extent, I guess, too.
It feels that way a little bit, but the teachers have been great. Staff, I was there when the summer program was going on, so I met a lot of staff.
When did you start?
July 2nd.
Okay.
Yep. But I surveyed the teachers, and one of the questions was, if you could use one word to describe Irving, what would you use? And honestly, about 50% of them used the word family. So that's amazing. That says that the climate in that school is right where it needs to be. And we're going to keep that going. We're not stopping the community events, the community meetings, the walking school bus, all of that is staying.
The community meetings, I went to 2 of those. And it's hard not to get teary-eyed because it's so much fun, those things. That's good to hear. Yeah. And have you touched base, I assume you have, with Mrs. Olson, and is
Absolutely,
there any advice that she gave you that sticks out? Did she comment on how you decorated your office or anything like that? Like, how's the transition work?
No. She's been wonderful. She's been very helpful.
And is she over at the central office now?
Yeah. Okay. So she's transitioning too. So she's trying to be supportive of me and get herself settled. So she's been great. Her kind of advice to me going into it was, here in Derby, it's about relationships, it's about family, it's about community, and you really need to keep that going. And that's a core value of my own too. So it's definitely going to continue. And we're also going to continue working on those academics because, we are trending in a good direction, but there's still a lot of room to go. And so we're going to work very hard on that.
And then you had mentioned you had surveyed the teachers to describe in one word, Irving in one word. Do teachers tend to tell the truth on those things? Do they know? Or
well, it was anonymous.
Okay.
So, and I did get some interesting answers. So I think that for the most part, people were honest. And it really is the feeling, like you said, when you go to those community meetings, it's hard not to get teary-eyed.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
I really think that's what it is.
So what's your commute like now compared to what it was before?
It's about 5 minutes before, 20 minutes now.
If there's no accidents on that bridge in Seymour.
Yeah, but you know what? It's kind of nice. I now have that extra 20 minutes to listen to a podcast or some music that I didn't get before.
Oh, there you go.
So it's a nice little start to the day and a little wind down on the way home.
All right, Aimee. Well, I want to thank you so much for coming by and talking to me. I really do appreciate it. And congratulations again, and best of luck in your first year in Irving.
Do you mind if I plug 2 events?
Oh, absolutely not.
Thank you. Because I am new, I do want, I'm trying to set up some events where the community and parents and students can meet me. So on Tuesday, August 21st from 6 to 7, at Derby Public Library, we'll be doing a meet and greet read aloud. I have some books I'd like to share. We'll be happy to, answer questions, meet with parents. We'll have some light refreshments. And Sue Sherman at the library helped me set that up. She's been wonderful. And then we are having our back to school bash on Wednesday, September 5th from 5 to 7 in our parking lot and playground. We're going to have an ice cream food truck there, games, some community partners to share information, and that'll be a nice chance for the community to come together and meet everybody and start the year off right. So
awesome. And what I'll do is I'll record something separate, so that's at the very top of the podcast as well, and I'll put it in text so people know about it.
Awesome.
All right. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
For hundreds of years we've brought you the news. Printed the info, we gave you the clues. Owners' profits were always sky high. Changing market now threatens our lives. Post-literation, critical reading, dumbed down nation, signs have been breeding. TV sucking ideas from our head. Public discourse just about dead. We'll ride the dinosaur. Yeah, ride the dinosaur. Our readers are in the